Good morning. It is 8:25 a.m. on Sunday, May 24th, 2020. I'm Christiana Ellis, and I just got up. This is 5 more minutes. It is Sunday, which means I am talking about my rewatch of The Legend of Korra, Episode 8, Book 1, When Extremes Meet. So, this episode begins on a little bit of a respite. Recall we just finished up where we had, 2 episodes ago we had the attack on the finals of tournament of the pro bending arena from the Equalists, and then in the very next episode we discover that Asami's father has actually been building like mechanical robo-tanks for them. But Asami, chooses to side with Team Avatar rather than join him. But so now, at the beginning of this episode, we have Bolin, Mako, and Asami all coming to live at Air Temple Island. And we get just some nice silliness as they load in, like, some fun stuff with Asami. Even though we've certainly learned that she's cool, she still does the rich girl trope of having like a million bags. And I think one of the early delights in this episode is Iki comes and does her Ask a Million Rapid Fire Questions thing, and Bolin gives it right back to her in an awesome way, where he asks a bunch of questions in the exact same cadence, but then she tops him by answering all of his questions in order, just without difficulty. And that's just a lot of fun, where watching him kind of engage on that level, but then she still beats him. It's good stuff. And then of course Milo being kind of creepy around Asami, and it's like, it's just chaos. But we settle everyone in, and then we have, of course, a moment of planting the seeds for more of the relationship drama. That none of it really pays off in this episode. It's all just early little developments, little things to keep the tension percolating there. For example, where Iki, when accompanying Korra and Asami to Asami's new room, just haphazardly like, "Hey, Asami, did you know that Korra likes Mako?" And there's some really just fun animation stuff there with the horrified reaction from Korra, and then when Korra shuts Iki out of the room, her own little, angry cat sort of reaction. And it's fun stuff, but like that plus later when we have Mako be kind of gentlemanly towards Korra in the backseat of the car later, and we just have just a little bit of a shot of Asami noticing that in the rearview mirror, and it's just like, oh well, there's still some stuff happening there. But in the meantime, we don't have anything from Lynn this time. We don't see her, but it's confirmed that she does, in fact, step down as police chief. And the new guy basically explains in his press conference how he's basically Tarlok's police chief. He's going to do whatever Councilman Tarlok says. And at this point, I think it's clear to Korra, after everything that happened. Actually, I think it's not necessarily obvious why Korra finally picks up on this. Maybe she just finally picks up on Tenzin's cue. Or, it's just between the lines, so to speak. But both Tenzin and Korra are aligned now that Tarlok, even if he's nominally on their side, there's something skeezy about him. There's something off, and he's just constantly playing mind games, and it's not clear what his end goal is, and it's frustrating. And so we have them both knowing that it's kind of like, so it seems like in the wake of this horrible terrorist attack, you have managed to get the police chief replaced the police chief who didn't like you very much replaced with someone who really will follow anything you say. But is it just politics, or is there something more going on? Yeah, right? Because, of course, as we see that Tarlok begins cracking down more on these, curfews and oppression of non-benders, and basically, as Korra says later, literally doing all of the things that Amon says that benders do, which is why the rebellion should happen. He is pressing on all of those fault lines deliberately in, so-called attempt to crack down on the equalists, but, to everyone else it's like, but you're punishing all of these innocent people who didn't do anything. It's really starting to feel awful. And of course, Korra, refuses to rejoin the task force. But it's all just a mess. And Tarlok is a good bad guy in especially in a contrast with Amon, because of course, at least up until the end of this episode, he's not been any sort of like a physical threat. He's just powerful and smart, and he keeps outmaneuvering her. And no matter how many mean things she says, he can beat her at that game. That's always, I think, a frustrating sort of character to throw at your hero, is someone who's just, like, better at saying mean things than you. You want to get in there and just tell him what you think, and then he basically, she's just kind of like, I don't need you, I'm the Avatar. And he goes, well, yeah, but you're not actually the Avatar yet, right? You're an Avatar in training, because how's that airbending going? And he basically just knows exactly the button to push that just totally takes the wind out of her sails. Wind out of her sails, right? Because, of course, we have in the conversation that Korra has with Tenzin later, she reveals like she's been practicing and making progress at being able to do all the airbender motions, like we've seen her going through those spinning fans much better now and all of that, but she still hasn't actually done any airbending. Why not? Why is she having this block? And, Tenzin suggests, well, if you connected with any of the previous avatars, that's another thing that she hasn't been able to do. So she's feeling very down on herself and frustrated, like, he's right, I'm a lousy avatar, and, but that's when we get the nice, moment where Bolin and Mako and Asami come to her and basically just remind her, Aang didn't know all the elements yet when he started trying to save the world. And he relied on help from his friends, and that's what, he needed that. And so she can do the same, and they have a new team avatar, and it's wonderful. And we get this exciting sequence where, they go out and stop a jailbreak, fighting some equalists and chi blockers in a neat car chase. And, we get to see Asami in action as the driver of this awesome car, and with her electro glove and everything, and the team working together, like, the street gets blocked, but she's like, make a ramp, and, Korra and Bolin make a ramp for the car to just jump over this obstruction, and Asami's, like, giving orders, but everyone's just following what's going on. Alright, my microphone is bumping, and the desk is bumping because Rocket is chewing on a little thing down there. But, where was I? Oh, yeah, but it's an exciting sequence where we see lots of teamwork in action, where they manage to stop these escaping equalists. But then we have Tarlok show up, after it's all done, to basically say, you didn't help, you just tore up the street and got in the way of the real cops. And here's the thing that I think is great about that little exchange, is that in the first episode, that was kind of true, right? We saw Korra, inexperienced with the city, fight back against some gang members, but end up causing more destruction than the gang members were, right? And certainly in a context where it's like, well, the gang members are just going to be mad now and come back later. And so what she was doing then really wasn't that helpful. And then, interfering with the police then, like all of that, those were real, arguments then. But this time, Korra can respond, but there weren't any police around. There was no one else to do this. We didn't cause that much damage, and like she's right that like this time that those things are not true. That's just Tarlok's attempt to spin how she ate his lunch there, and but it's just increasing the tension between the group, and Tarlok seeing this new team avatar starting to cause problems for him. But then, of course, later, we see, on the awful side of the police being, rounding up and like mass arresting a bunch of non-benders who are just angry because the new curfew laws, like their power's been turned out and they're mad. And, the Team Avatar shows up because the police scanner said, it's a rally of armed and dangerous equalists, and what they arrive is just a bunch of people saying, hey, turn our power back on. And so when those arrests start to happen, Korra wants to stop it, but then Tarlok has the rest of her friends, Bolin and Mako and Asami all arrested. And it actually starts getting like really scary in a different sort of way than Amon and the Equalists, right? Because it starts being a thing of like, technically Asami is actually breaking the law, right? They're saying, well, but yeah, we can arrest her because she is a non-bender out after curfew. And we know that her father is an Equalist, so we have a right to be suspicious. And it's just one of those things where we instinctively know how wrong it is, and yet there's just enough of that veneer of authority that it's like, but how can you say? Because like if you try to stop them, then you're fighting against the police, and then they get you for that. And that's of course how they're going to arrest everybody. And so it's just this bureaucratic threat that is starting to feel really out of control. Korra wants to stop. Like she at least interferes enough that a bunch of the, the people in this rally were able to, like it wasn't even really a rally, it was just a bunch of people saying, hey, turn our power back on. Gets a bunch of them, able to escape. But then there's this awful feeling of powerlessness. Like she brings in Tenzin, and they're basically told, like, well, you're not going to be able to do anything about it. You're going to have to take it up with the council, and that means waiting till morning. And Tenzin is furious with, along with Korra. They're both mad, but it's like, what are you going to do? At this point, they're kind of requiring you, in order to resist, you're having to fight against the people that in theory you're supposed to be on the same side of. And it's really kind of a struggle that Korra doesn't feel particularly equipped to deal with and engage on that sort of bureaucratic level. And indeed, it is her impatience that leads her to not wait until the council meeting in the morning with Tenzin, and instead to go by herself to confront Councilman Tarlok. And I think we get there's another great conversation there that is already heightened suspense when there's only one other guy there, and it's, like an aide to Tarlok, and Tarlok tells him to leave, so it's just the two of them, and we're like, wait, what? This doesn't seem right. And she's of course coming to basically just threaten him, and it's another just really smart, incisive exchange where she says, like, you're doing all of the things that Amon says benders do. And he's like, well, isn't that what you're doing right now? You're coming here to use your bending to intimidate me into giving you what you want. And the thing is, he is not wrong, but also he is wrong. Because she's doing it in the interest of... the people, whereas he's got some other, indefinable game going on. And one of the things that I think is interesting to talk about, like in this season, we haven't really had it revealed yet what his deal is fully. But there is an element where sometimes really, like, there doesn't have to be some secret ulterior motive for people to act in these authoritarian ways. Sometimes they really just feel like they should be able to get what they want. Anyway, she is not going to let his sharp words cut her down this time. She continues to resist against him, but he makes the first move. He finally just loses his patience with her, and he attacks her, and presumably he is trying to at least subdue her, if not kill her. And so this is when they fight back. And he as a waterbender, is presenting a fairly serious threat to her, where he's really forcing her to work hard to defend herself. But eventually, you know, he's got this really cool wall in his office with water going down, which gives him a, you know, it's like cool decor, and it's on brand with him, but also gives him water for waterbending whenever he needs it. But then she just takes the whole wall and smashes him through it. And it's true at this point, like in the fight, we see her coming after him really aggressively at the point where it seems clear that she has won. She's beaten him. She's coming after him. She knocks him off of this ledge onto the floor of the council chamber. She's wrecking everything. And I think we could all reasonably be afraid now. It's like, well, how's this going to look, Korra? I mean, it's going to look like you tried to have one of the council members killed. Like, and we know that he attacked you first, but who will listen to you over him? But it gets even worse than that, right? Because we see her not pulling any punches. Like he obviously demonstrated himself as a threat. So, but she's coming after him even when he doesn't have any more water to defend himself. But that's when we get the big reveal, right? She suddenly finds herself frozen and unable to move because he's a bloodbender. And this is something that, you know, was a minor plot point back in The Last Airbender, that, you know, waterbenders, especially powerful ones, on the full moon can bend the water within people's blood and like force them to move around like puppets. And Katara, in learning about that, basically ultimately rejected that power as in and of itself evil and awful, and decided to reject it even though she could theoretically do it. But in this case, though, not only is he revealing that he can do it, but crazily, he can do it even when there's no full moon. So, like, how, you know, the dialogue has to kind of explain to us why that's crazy, but at the same time, just having, you know, it's relatively concise, where Korra's just like, wait, you're a bloodbender, but it's not a full moon. How are you doing that? And sure enough, it's tricky, but you know, he is able to defeat her with the bloodbending, and then tie her up and throw her in the back of a truck to basically say, I'm taking you where no one will ever find you again. And this is one of those things, too, where there's a small element of, like, why is it that he doesn't just kill her? Well, I mean, obviously it's a kid's show, so we know that that wouldn't happen. But there's a little bit of a, I don't know, it seems like, but then again, I don't know. I don't want to, you know, be too hard on that. Like, but in any event, though, we get just another bit of a little flash of, we see a bit more of this vision that Korra has had once or twice before, where we see a bit more, and there seems to be a courtroom scene, and there seems to be another guy there who is, you know, he starts bloodbending, and we see Toph and Sokka and Aang all themselves frozen as they try to stop him doing his thing. And so we're given more indication that this is a vision of something important for Korra to learn, but she hasn't quite been able to access it yet. But one of the things that I want to kind of finish this episode with a note on, and just I think there's just some cool visual storytelling, is just as Tarlok is himself driving this truck, with Korra in the back of it after all of this went down. One of the things that has defined him as a character visually all along is that he just constantly has this little smirk, and he's got his good hair and everything, and now at the end we see his hair is all in a mess, and he's just got this extremely pissed, sullen expression as he's driving away. And it's an indication that even though he's obviously gotten the better of Korra at this time, the fact that he's been pushed to this point was clearly not his plan. So she, this is a lost battle, but she has forced him to do things that he didn't want to have to do, and he's not happy about it. And so, another cliffhanger ending. Oh no! Actually, I guess some of the others weren't cliffhanger endings because we kind of finished the note, but they were big bad reveals. But this one's literally cliffhanger. Where's he taking Korra? Will she be okay? We'll have to find out next week when I continue my rewatch with episode 9, Out of the Past. Maybe that's where we'll learn some more about this vision. And in the meantime, I'll talk to you all tomorrow for 5 more minutes.